Good morning, everyone. My name is Ali Johnson, and I will be moderating today's webinar. I'll begin by introducing the Capital Pathways program, introduce myself, and then pass the mic to our guest speaker, Jamie Dion, who is our QuickBooks Pro advisor. She'll introduce herself and take us through a presentation on setting up QuickBooks for your business. Please feel free to ask questions using the chat function. We'll respond to them as we go along. And for any questions that we don't get to in this webinar, we're happy to address through our no-cost one-on-one services or connect you to resources that can help. We'll share a recording of this webinar and slides as part of a follow-up email. So what is the Capital Pathways program? It is a program funded by the U.S. Treasury SSBCI initiative, sponsored by the Virginia Department of Small Businesses and Supplier Diversity, and hosted by the Virginia SBDC and George Mason University. We'll start with a program overview, then go through program eligibility, and finish up with an outline of the services we offer. Capital Pathways is a no-cost, specialized SBDC program that helps small businesses build the systems and habits needed to become capital ready. Being capital ready matters because businesses that are less prepared can often self-select out or fail their loan applications. These early failures correlate to a lack of adequate capital, and higher cost alternatives don't build long-term capacity. Ultimately, only half of the loan amounts requested by small businesses actually reach them. To put things in perspective, about 25% of small businesses need access to financing for growth and preserving cash flow. However, only 20 to 30% of those who apply actually get their loans approved. To help address this challenge, Capital Pathways creates a path to financial and legal readiness. Our program offers an immersive, hands-on group experience paired with one-on-one advising support. Who's eligible? Very small businesses and nonprofits at any stage who face challenges accessing traditional financing are eligible to participate in our program. The services we provide include a guided self-assessment, legal structure validation, financial skills and tools, loan application readiness, and credit building advising. We start our process with a self-assessment that pinpoints your business's key gaps so we can connect you with tailored resources, either through our Capital Pathways program or other resources that can help. Under our legal structure validation, our in-house advisors can help you through basic legal questions, and we also partner with a law firm who can help with more complex topics related to business registration, trademarks, as well as contracts and agreement reviews. We also offer financial webinars on topics including financial basics, financial statement preparation, and of course, QuickBooks training. Our one-on-one tailored support covers business foundations, profitability and pricing, financial forecasting, financing options and readiness, financial statements and tools, as well as loan readiness and lender preparation. These loan readiness services include both webinars and one-on-one individualized support. Our webinars cover topics such as what lenders look for in loan applications, as well as interactive mock loan interviews, SBA loan options, and sample application analyses. We also partner with a lender who provides one-on-one support for those looking for capital. Finally, our credit building advisor can help you review and interpret your credit reports as part of building an individualized credit improvement plan to strengthen your credit and help you qualify for better financing options and terms. If you're interested in getting started, you can reach out through our website at virginiasbdc.org/programs/capital-pathways. Or you can reach out to me directly at ajohn216@gmu.edu, and I'll share my email and website link in the chat for all of you to have. Now, on to introductions. As mentioned before, my name is Ali Johnson. I am today's moderator and serve as the program and intake coordinator for the Capital Pathways program. I have a professional background in economic development, small business support, and access to finance projects, both domestically and internationally. Our session today will consist of a 2-hour presentation. Again, please feel free to ask any questions throughout the presentation using the chat function. We'll respond to them as we go. And any questions that we don't get to in this webinar, we're happy to address through our no-cost one-on-one services or connect you to resources that can help. As I said it before, we'll share a recording of this webinar and slides in the follow-up email. I'd like to pass things over now to Jamie to introduce herself, tell us a bit about her background, and start her presentation.
Thank you, Allie, and welcome everyone. My name is Jamie Dion. I am the owner of Balanced Bookkeeping out of Charlottesville, Virginia. And before I ran my bookkeeping business, in my past life, I was a teacher. And so I like to embed a little bit of that teaching skill into the bookkeeping world. And so this is how I do that. And so my goal today is to make this foreign language of QuickBooks Online a little bit more approachable to you all. And at the end of this session today, you should have the basics of QuickBooks Online, specifically what your monthly workflow should be. I want to give you all some kudos for being here, doing this QuickBooks bookkeeping, record keeping work right now. This is a great way to start your year, right? Either for the purpose of going back and catching up for 2025 or getting yourself some solid foundations for 2026. This session is meant to be highly interactive. The way that it will run is I'm going to show you a particular feature of QuickBooks Online, and then I'm going to give you 3 to 5 minutes to explore that feature. Okay, so it's kind of going to be a little bit of back and forth, back and forth. So I've put into the chat box a link to QuickBooks Test Drive. All right, so what I would love you to do is split your screen if you can, with half of your screen being your the QuickBooks Test Drive or your own QuickBooks Online account if you would prefer to work in yours, and have the other half be this Zoom screen so you can kind of watch what I'm doing at the same time, okay? The benefit of using the test drive, right, is so that you can make all the mistakes that I'm sure you're going to be making, right, in QuickBooks Online without the repercussions of messing up your financial data. If you feel like you've already got a basic understanding of QuickBooks and you want to be in your own, that's fine too, okay? To each their own. Also, during those 3 to 5 minutes, I'm going to use that opportunity to answer questions in the chat box. So if I introduce something to you and you have a question that's relevant to that feature, please put that into the chat box and I will answer while you're exploring. If you have a question that is not relevant to what we're learning about, hold on to that question, write it on a notepad, and the last 30 minutes of our session today is going to be Q&A, so we can really go over anything that you have as an outstanding question. Finally, before we get into it, know that we also have a QuickBooks 201 that I believe is next month. So after this foundation, if you want more of me and you want more QuickBooks, definitely sign up for that. And then use this resource, the one-on-one advising. Even if you don't need one-on-one time with me in QuickBooks, remember we have other advisors that can help with other financials, legal. We really want to make sure that you are set up for success. Okay, I'm seeing the chat box already. I had that same issue this morning. If you're getting an error message, go into an incognito tab and log in. That's how I was able to fix it. This has never happened before for me, but please get into an incognito tab and go to that link and you should be fine. All right. If that isn't the case, let me know. I'm sorry, QuickBooks sometimes has a mind of its own. All right. All right, so let's get to it. All right, so this is our QuickBooks test drive. The sample company is called Craig's Landscaping. Hold on, Thomas. So if you go, let me just So you should be able to go to whatever your browser is, Chrome, Safari. If you click on your browser window, you should have an option for incognito window. So you would click that you wanted an incognito tab or incognito window, and that should fix the problem. All right, maybe Allie, if you can give a more detailed description, that would be awesome. But we're going to keep rolling forward. All right. So this is Craig's Landscaping and Design. So this is a newer business. He's just been in business for about 6 months. Just so you get a little bit of background, he invoices through QuickBooks Online. You'll see he's adding his bills into QuickBooks. He's using it really completely. And while we're not going to hit on all of these different aspects today, by the end, like I mentioned, you should be able to be running your business through QuickBooks for the most part. Okay. So when you log into QuickBooks Online, this is the first screen that you will see when you log in. I call this our dashboard. And on here, QuickBooks has been intentional about trying to be a bit software for all businesses, right? You can see there are tons of tabs. There are tons of reports, right? And so your job is to customize this to be relevant to you. So as a default, you'll see that QuickBooks is using AI to give you some snapshots of what is going on in your business. So you can see the invoices that were paid this week, what your profit and loss, what your profit was for the month, maybe some overdue invoices that need your attention. As we scroll down, you can see your sales funnel, right? So this is the invoices that have been out, right? Craig has $3,700 of not paid invoices, $3,000 that have been paid but not deposited yet, and then $1,400 that have been deposited in the last 30 days. You can customize this, right, to do whatever is important to you and your business. You have a quick bank account snapshot, so you can see what your balances are on your banks and credit cards. A quick snapshot of your profit and loss. And all of these, if you click into them, you can go deeper into these reports. This is one I really like. I think this is pretty visual, right? To be able to see the breakdown of your expenses throughout the past 30 days, maybe the past year, right? Again, all of these can be customized. Now to customize, I should probably show you that, right? You can click on this button at the very top where it says customize. And you can see, you can add, adjust, you can make things bigger, smaller, however it makes sense for you. I always say that you want to have this be a true dashboard where you can come and look really quickly, right? And then move on, right? So you can add or remove other widgets on here for things that are important for you. Like maybe I have a bill pay problem, right? I want to be there. Okay, and then it will just pop up. So this is where it's going to be once it loads, right? Accounts payable. I can see what's current. Save. Okay, I think sometimes this can be a bit overwhelming, right? So get rid of the things that aren't important to you. That is absolutely fine to do. Now we'll move over to this toolbar over here. Okay, QuickBooks has really revamped this. If you're a longtime QuickBooks user, this might look really different than in the past, but largely it's the same. So for this plus create, this button is for adding anything new to your QuickBooks Online file. So you can see, you can add new invoices. If you've received a check in the mail, you can record the received payment. You might create a sales receipt along with expenses if you got a new bill. And then in QuickBooks 201, we talk about adding journal entries, which is a little bit more complicated. Basically adding any new data you would do through plus create. Now, I'm sure, I bet you're already being like, oh my gosh, there's so much here, right? And so I say to keep it a little bit of a tunnel vision, focus on what's important. And an easy way to do that is to add bookmarks. So today we're going to be talking about bank transactions. So I'm going to bookmark that. We're going to talk about reconciliations. I'm going to bookmark that. And we're going to talk about the chart of accounts. I'm going to bookmark that. Now, when I come into QuickBooks, voila, right? There are the three tabs that I need to go to, right? And I could just click on that and get to the area of QuickBooks that I need. This is our reporting tab. We'll talk about this later today. This is where you can run standard reports, but also make customized reports that, that help you to pull the data that you need for your business. And then finally, these two are kind of the same. So all apps gives you all of the different features that you might need for QuickBooks. The accounting tab is where we're really going to hang out, but then expenses, your sales, customer hub, you might do payroll, right? A ton of different options down here. Then accounting, this is the same as here, right? Another thing that QuickBooks does is they give you multiple ways to get to an area in QuickBooks. So if you look here, actually on the screen right now, you could click here to get to accounting, you could click here to get to accounting, or you could click here to get to accounting, right? So a little bit, I think, overkill, but figure out the way that makes sense for your brain to get to where you need to go. All right, one more area on this first dashboard that I'm going to show you, and then this will be your 3 to 5 minutes to explore. The last place I want you to check out for this initial exploration time is this gear up here, okay, settings. This is basically all of your back end financial data. This is where this is held. And so if you have a brand new QuickBooks Online account, the first place I want you to go is to your account and settings option. And I'd like you to make sure that this is filled out completely, all of these different tabs. All right, so this company info, this gets synced to your invoices. This gets synced to your bills that you pay. You just want to make sure that all of this information is complete so that you don't have to retype in this information again and again and again. So you can see Craig has a lot of missing data. So I would want this address to be here, the phone, industry, all this good stuff. Definitely your EIN. So you want to make sure this is filled out completely. And then sales, if you're going to be invoicing through QuickBooks Online, okay, this will save you so much time, right? Are you going to offer discounts? Are you going to accept tips? By turning all of this on or off, this is going to make it so that the default when you create these invoices is already there for you, right? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can adjust the messaging in here, right? So this is the email that would be sent to your customer. You can adjust the language so that it sounds like you, right? This is a little bit stuffy as QuickBooks is, but you can have the language reflect your brand, right? Another great option are these reminders. If you have an issue with accounts receivable, if you're not getting paid on time, you can set up these automatic invoice reminders that go out. You can adjust them. Let me turn this on. 3 days before, a week before, 2 weeks before, 30 days before, 90, both before and after the due date of the invoice. So for that, right, you're able, again, to adjust the invoicing language for these reminders so that it can sound very friendly for the first reminder, but then by the third reminder, it's like, can you please pay me? Like, can we move on, right? So so many tools in here that can save you a ton of time. And number one, and the most important thing, right, to make sure that you get paid to keep that financial health of your business strong. Okay, so for a quick recap, I'm going to give you about 3 minutes now. I want you to see if you can adjust this dashboard to reflect things that are important for your business. Okay, so if you're not going to be invoicing through QuickBooks, if you have more of a retail business and you have a POS system, why don't you get rid of this, right? This is going to be a bunch of zeros. That's not important to you. But maybe if you have an accounts payable issue, see if you can add that to your dashboard so that you can have a good eye on what your payables looks like. Next, see if you could add some bookmarks that we're going to be working on in QuickBooks today. So again, we're going to be working on bank transactions, reconciling, and chart of accounts. See if you can add those bookmarks. And then finally, check into your settings. Most importantly, account and settings. But a lot of these other ones you should have a read on too. Maybe manage users. Do you need to invite your accountant or your bookkeeper or a colleague to have access to QuickBooks too? This is where you would do that. All right, so go ahead and take about 3 minutes to explore, and I will start answering questions in the chat box while you explore. All right, awesome. Looks like Thomas is in. Ganesh, great. Jenny, did I already answer? Yes, it is being recorded. Brenda, I'm sorry, are you caught up? All right, Thomas, yeah, so we're going to talk about integrations in just a bit. All right, Clinton says, how to save bookmarks again. All right, so for that, Clinton, so if we go to any of these, literally any of these options, so like say I want to have my invoices bookmarked too, like I'll be invoicing through QuickBooks, you can click on this little flag here. Do you see how that turned black? And now it will be in my bookmarks. And then when I click on that, voila, I get to my invoices. Okay. So Brenda, we are still just on the dashboard. So that first screen that you logged into when you got to QuickBooks, it should look like this. So we are just checking out where no worries, Brenda. We can go slow. We're just exploring all of the different data that it shows on our QuickBooks dashboard, and then a little bit about the different controls we have. One of the things about, and I already mentioned it this morning, one of the things about QuickBooks is their market are all businesses, right? It's up to you to customize this software so that it can be the software for your business. Okay. And it will take some time. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, let's get on a call and we can walk through this even more slowly too. All right. All right. Someone says, I'm new to business and I'm not sure what's important to have on a dashboard. I have an online hybrid health coaching education business. So I would say, Salima, I think, sorry if I didn't pronounce that right. I would think about keeping it simple to start, right? And then as you build your business, you'll be able to identify what is important. So if I were you, right, I might just leave it as is, right? I don't know if you're invoicing through QuickBooks. It sounds like that type of business would be relevant to invoice through QuickBooks. I'd probably want to be able to see my breakdown for my expenses and my bank accounts, but probably not much more, right? I don't think you need to add or subtract too much. All right, so about 1 more minute. Again, go ahead and put those questions in the chat box. I'm here to help, I promise. All right. Let's keep rolling. So once you have a QuickBooks Online account, one of the first things after you do what I just told you to do, right? go and customize your dashboard. One of the most important things that you want to do is customize your chart of accounts. All right, so I'm going to go to my bookmarks and I'm going to click on chart of accounts. If you didn't bookmark it, it's under accounting, chart of accounts. All right. Another way you could do it, as I mentioned, is settings, chart of accounts. See all the things. All right. So your chart of accounts is the foundation of your business structure. I often say that it's like the skeleton of your business finances, right? If we don't have our chart of accounts set up accurately, eventually your financial reports are going to start hurting. And that's going to need some remediation, right? It's going to need some therapy to fix it and get it back to showing you the right data. And so when we think about the chart of accounts and when we think about accounting in general, there are 5 different types of accounts. All right. So we have our assets. Our assets are the ways that we hold money in our business. So if we think about it, we have obviously our business checking, right? We might have a business savings. An asset could also be accounts receivable, right? So invoices that we've sent out but haven't received payment for yet. It could be inventory if you have an inventory business. It could also be vehicles or buildings, machinery, right? Anything that we could possibly sell for money or that holds money in our business. So these are all assets. Then we have liabilities. Liabilities is money that we need to pay, right? We owe. And so when we think about that, that's accounts payable. Those are the bills that come in, right? That we need to pay every month. That can be our credit cards. It's also sales tax. So if you are selling a good, that's considered a liability, right? We collect that from our customers and then we have to remit that to the state or the town. And then these could also be loans, right? So if you have a business loan, if you have a car loan in your business, those are all liabilities. Next comes equity. Now, I feel like Craig's landscaping design, it's not a good example of what you should have for equity accounts because really you should also have owner draw, right? Or owner distribution, we also call that, which is money that you take out of your business to get to as pay, right? Or owner investment, which is money that you've put into your business in order for your business to run, okay? Next, we go to income. And again, I think that Craig has a little bit of overkill on this one, right? You can look at all of these different income accounts he has. In my opinion, it's a little bit too many. But when we think about income, there is a fine line between too much and too little. And so I often work with clients who have just one income account, right? So they just have a sales account or just a services account. And I would challenge you to think about your different revenue streams and why that might be important to track. So if I think back to Salima, who has a health coaching and an education business, right? I might want them to split the education in income or education revenue separately from the coaching. And so, for example, what I do is I have my recurring clients, recurring revenue separate from my one-time income so that I can see where I'm making the most bang for my buck for those income streams. So I would just challenge you to maybe think a little bit more granularly in terms of your revenue streams when you are setting this up. Again, I would not recommend having as many as Craig does, right? He has 15 maybe, but maybe 3, maybe 4, right? So that you can see where your money is coming in your business. Then we have the final one is expenses. And when we think about expenses, these are all of the ways that you spend money to keep your business running. And so that could be cost of goods sold, right? The expenses that you need in order to produce your product, but also operating expenses. So advertising, rent and lease, software, payroll, these would all fall within here. So when you get a chart of accounts, when you start with QuickBooks Online, you'll answer questions and they will create a chart of accounts based on what you say. So they're going to ask you, what's your industry? Do you have employees? Do you collect sales tax? And then based on the answers you give, they're again going to give you a template for what they think you would need in your business. And most times, the template they give you has way too many accounts, okay? I think that a good amount of accounts is like 70, maybe like around that, maybe between 50 and 100, okay? Anything more than that is probably unnecessary, okay? So when you get this chart of accounts, your job is to customize it to reflect your business. And there are tons of different ways that you can customize it. So first of all, right, you can make accounts inactive. So to make them inactive, you would just click, let's get rid of workers' comp for today. So you can click on the down arrow and make inactive. All right, and I make it inactive. Then it's gone. Where was I? Insurance, right? The workers' comp is now gone. It's gone, but it's not gone forever. So if I was like, ooh, I do need workers' comp as a sub account, it's very easy to reactivate it. So I would go to settings, include inactive, and then if I scroll back to where I was, you can see here, right, workers' compensation deleted. I can make it active again. Okay, so I recommend that you make your chart of accounts reflect your business as of today. Okay, if you want to buy a truck for your business in 5 years and that's the game plan, you don't need to have a trucks account today, right? This is a fluid document. This is a fluid system. So really make sure that this looks like your business today, not in 5 years. Okay, you can always adjust this as you grow. Athena asked a great question. That's where we are going to go next. So what if there are transactions against an account when you mark it inactive? So great example, right? So let me go down to, say I had a bookkeeper, right? And I have a couple of expenses in there for 2026, but I decided that I was going to do my own bookkeeping this year. and I don't need that account anymore and I want to keep my books really clean, right? We don't want to inactivate that because there are transactions for this calendar year that need a home, right? And so instead, if you've used an account in the past, and you don't want to use it anymore, the better thing to do is to merge the accounts together to the new account that something like that would go to. So if I look at this bookkeeper, right, that is relevant enough to go under accounting, right? Those are largely the same legal and professional fees. And so what you need to do is we're going to click the down arrow, and this time we'll click edit. And we need to make sure that the account details match exactly to the account that we want to merge them into. So I need to make sure that my name is exactly the same as the one here, capitals and periods count, okay? I need to make sure the account type is expenses, it is, and I need to make sure that the detail type is legal and professional fees. Now, if I click save, it's going to ask me, do I want to merge those accounts together? And I'm going to click yes, merge accounts. All right, and now bookkeeping is gone. Right, it's gone. But if I look at my accounting, it will now have, and I don't know if Craig has any in here for bookkeeping, but we can check. Right, we can see that Books by Bessie is bookkeeping, and it's now nestled under the accounting tab, right? Okay. So that's the way to do that. That's another reason, so that seems like a little bit more complicated, right? That's another reason that if you can customize this chart of accounts before you start adding data, that's the best route. But again, this is fluid, so you would want to merge them together if you do have data in there. If you need a brand new account, right? Like let's say that I have a business coach this year, you would click new account. You would put the name that you want. The account type, this is largely set up the way that we had just talked about, right? Assets, liabilities, equity, income, and expenses. This is an expense. My detail type is legal and professional. I want that to be nestled with those other professional fees, right? My accounting, my legal. So I can click make this a sub account, and then I would choose my legal and professional. And then you can see down here how that would look, right? Legal and professional fees. Now I have accounting. I'm going to actually just get rid of fees since I didn't use that for the other ones. So accounting, business coaching, and a lawyer. Maybe I should change this to business coach. All right, and then save. And it's there. So I'm going to give you three minutes right now to adjust. And again, if you're in Craig's, go wild, right? See what happens. There's no repercussions here. I will emphasize though, that this is meant to take a long time, right? 3 minutes should not be sufficient to build out your chart of accounts. This is something you want to do intentionally because your chart of accounts transfers over to your reporting. Okay, we'll see that in a little bit. So we want to make sure that it looks, sounds, and feels like your business. Okay, this is a great thing to meet with a coach for, or an advisor, or your accountant to set this up so that you're receiving reporting that's going to help you to actually make decisions in your business. Okay, so go ahead I'm going to give you 3 minutes, add some questions in the chat box, but see if you can inactivate some line items, see if you can reactivate them, see if you can merge some accounts together, and then see if you can add a new account. All right. All right. Great question. Salima says, how do you reactivate again? Yes. So what we would need to do is you'll need to make sure that you can see the inactive accounts. So you would click on settings, include inactive. And then I'm going to go down to my bookkeeper, right? And make active. All right. Feel good? What other questions do you have? I will also say I see a lot of clients who will have a separate line for every software, right? They'll have a QuickBooks fees, Canva fees, ChatGPT fees, right? That really distracts a lot of the reporting, right? We want to think about buckets rather than specific little like file folders. So think about having just like a software expenses, think about having maybe a dues and subscriptions. Unless, of course, you think that you have a spending issue, right? If you're feeling like you have too many subscriptions, then sometimes it is nice to separate out to be able to see that more granularly. So Salima says, what accounts do you suggest to put all the subscriptions in? So you could have one, I think a default typically is one that is called dues and subscriptions. So you can put those all in there. Software also works. If it's a software subscription, you have options. But what I would say is we're going to talk about this, and this is where we're going next, that what's most important is that you put the same expense in the same category each time. So for example, QuickBooks, right? It could be absolutely under software, right? It's a software that makes total sense. Or it could also be a subscription. And so both of those homes are totally fine. However, what's not fine is having half of them in software and half of the time in subscriptions. We want to stick to one and keep it there every time so that we have nice, clear data. Athena says, what does use for billable expense mean? Yes. So a billable expense, right? So billable expense income, and then we should have billable expense somewhere, right? So a billable expense, maybe did I miss it? You should have one that's a billable expense too. But billable expense income means that you are billing a client for an expense that you incurred. Okay. So for example, if you are, what's an example? If you're a consultant, right, and you have your clients pay for your travel, right? We can tag the flight and the hotel and the meals, right, as a billable expense. And then you would bill on your invoice for those expenses. And this is where that money would come in, the revenue would come in. And in a perfect world, we would be able to see that your billable expense income is the same as your billable expense line item expense account, right? To be able to prove that you received all of a reimbursement basically for that money. Does that make sense? And some of these accounts, okay, great. Some of these accounts QuickBooks makes you keep, right? So uncategorized, there's uncategorized income, uncategorized expense, uncategorized asset. And if I try to make it inactive, it says, sorry, you have to keep, right? It's not going to deactivate it. That being said, though, we want to avoid using anything that is not aligned to a tax return. So uncategorized, right? We don't know where that goes as a tax deduction. So you want to avoid using anything that's called uncategorized. Miscellaneous is too vague. Purchases is another one that QuickBooks adds, but that's a little bit too vague too. So you want to make sure that, like this one right here, you want to make sure that everything has a true home, okay? And another trick is to use the, if you're an LLC, use the 1040 Schedule C as a template, right? So that you can pull these numbers like legal and professional fees. Just this total is what I need to put over to my 1040. So by looking at that 1040, that's the tax form. That's a working smarter, not harder strategy, right? So Thomas says, what about material markups? Yeah, so if you are marking up, then you can still absolutely mark that, add the 10%, add the 5%, whatever you're adding for the markups on your invoice. And so then we would not be able to see, it wouldn't be a perfect balanced out, right? It wouldn't zero out your income versus your billable expense. But you would hopefully still be able to see that percentage reflected. Brian says, how does it work when the new account you want to establish is already listed as an account type? For example, I want to combine my MasterCard and Visa into credit card charges, yet credit card already exists as an account type. Ooh, so Brian, we actually do not want to combine credit card, because something that you should be doing monthly is reconciling those credit cards. We're going to talk about that towards the end of our session today. But we want to make sure that everything that is on those business cards is reflected. And the only way to do that is to reconcile. So you want to have, what I would recommend that you have is similar to what Craig has, is you would have a line item for your MasterCard, a line item for your Visa. We would not want to merge them. And another, we're going there right now, is because you can link these accounts so that the transactions automatically come into QuickBooks. So Brian, hold tight and you'll see right now. Okay. So once this is feeling good, again, 3 minutes is not sufficient, right? You need to spend more time on here. You also print this out. I don't know if you guys can see this pop up or not, but you can print this out and even save it as a Excel to move things around. You can kind of see right here. So you can do some highlights, deletes outside of QuickBooks if necessary. Okay, so once this is feeling good, our next step is to link our bank accounts. And so again, I have it under my handy dandy bookmark to go to bank transactions. But if you don't have that saved as bookmarks, you can go to accounting down here and bank transactions. Or you could go to all apps, accounting, and bank transactions. All right. All right. All of these pop-ups. QuickBooks is, let us be. All right. So one of the beautiful things about technology lately, right, is that with QuickBooks, we can now sync or link our bank and credit card accounts directly to QuickBooks so that transactions flow in here automatically. And so I highly recommend that you link these accounts to link, and again, only business. Okay, so if you are commingling right now, if you have personal and business on a personal card, we're going to want to add those manually separately. We don't want to link anything personal, okay? So to link a business bank, you will click link account. Maybe. There we go. It will ask you what your bank is, okay? Once, obviously, this is the test drive, right? It's not going to let me. But once you click on your bank, it will ask for your username and password, and then you'll be able to choose the accounts that you want to link to QuickBooks, okay? So you would want to do your checking, you'd want to do your credit cards. If you have a savings, you can link that as well. Most banks at this point work with QuickBooks, okay? There's only a few that are pretty quirky. So definitely, I highly recommend linking. And what will happen, oh, sorry, let me rewind. When you put in your bank, your username and password, they will also ask when you want to sync, what date you want to sync from. So if you are like Jamie, I am gonna try to get all of 2025 done, right? If you're a little bit behind, which is totally fine, you'll want to choose for your sync date January 1st, 2025, and they will pull in all of your transactions from 2025 to the present date. If you're thinking about using QuickBooks just for 2026, then choose 1/1/2026. What's most important, right, is that you have a full tax year in QuickBooks. So don't choose February 1st, 2026, right, because then we're missing January's. When we have this data, right, we can see we have the money we spent, our expenses, and the money we received, our income or reimbursements, who knows, right? When you go into QuickBooks, into these transactions, you'll be able to click on them and add, what's most important is to add a vendor and an account. All right, so I'm going to use, this is the same bank detail that you'll find in your bank account, which is really nice, right? So I can see that this was for A1 rental. A1. And the first time you'll have to add new customer, so I'll add plus new. A1 rental. You can add all this information. You don't have to. Okay, save. And this is for an equipment rental. Okay, the account. If I have expenses related to projects, you could link it to a project. Here's that billable button, Athena, where I could make this billable. So this will show up on my invoices for A1 rental if I wanted to add it. And then you can add a memo if you'd like to. I'm going to say Charlottesville job. Okay, you can add an invoice directly to it if you wanted to, or a receipt. And then you click add. When you click add, this information is now going to your reporting. Okay. Remember how I said with QuickBooks, right? We want to have it all be to one specific account. So if I click here, right? So I have the A1 rental and I say, ooh, did I put this to job supplies or did I put it to equipment rental? I don't remember. As long as you have a vendor or customer here, you can click on this button that says categorization history, and it will show you where you coded A1 rental to in the past, right? So I can see the one I just categorized for that Charlottesville job. I did it as equipment rental before, so I can assign the category again and have it be there. Okay, I can add. Your job, right, is to categorize all of these transactions every single month. Okay, that's the first step of our workflow, our monthly workflow, is to get all of these categorized completely. All right. So what I'd like you to do, and this is where you're going to spend most of your time, all right, is in this bank transactions tab. I would like you to go ahead and just see if you can categorize some of these transactions, see how it feels. Try to use that categorization history. Maybe check out the differences and similarities between MasterCard, the credit cards, and the checking account. All right, and see if you can get to 0. Oh, one more thing. So if we look up here, right? So your bank information is syncing to QuickBooks to tell you what your bank balance is in your bank. QuickBooks is just a software, so there's a chance that what's in QuickBooks doesn't match your bank, and that's when we're going to get into reconciling in a little bit. But once you're down to 0, right? I'm going to say this is, I don't know. Once you're down to 0, if you have this green check mark, we should hopefully have the same balance for the bank balance and QuickBooks balance. I'm looking here and something's wrong, right? We probably have a duplicate or a missing transaction somewhere. So we're gonna deal with that later. But go ahead and just see if you can get through like a handful of these: categorizing, adding a new customer or vendor, choosing a good account for pies, cakes, right? Do I have a meals and entertainment? Again, if we don't, you can add a new account directly on your banking transaction, or again, you can go back to your chart of accounts to add it. 2 options. Okay. Go ahead and keep those questions coming in the chat box. And I will answer. Yeah, I will answer while you explore. Thomas, I have a bank account which needs a PIN. Need to sign in. Any way around this to get automatic updates? I think you should still be fine, Thomas. Do you want to share what your bank is? Honestly, yes, credit unions work. You can link even teeny tiny ones at this point. Yes, Brian, I always get this question. How secure are these connections between QuickBooks and the banks? Do you recommend a VPN to work with QuickBooks Online? So the way that they communicate is a one-way street. Okay, I just want you to know this fact, right? So the banks bring in the information to QuickBooks, right? They send that information to QuickBooks. QuickBooks does not go into your bank. All right, it's like a one-way. It's like a locked door, right? You can get out, but you can't get in. So I have never run into any security issues, and I've been doing this for a while. Not saying that it can't happen, right? But I don't see this happening. When there is some type of security issue, they will unsync. And so you will get a message at the top of the screen that says, QuickBooks has temporarily stopped working with your bank. Please log in for updated information. Put in updated information. So again, not saying it doesn't happen, but I don't see it happening. But let me just show you the workaround really quick. So if you're like Jamie, I don't trust QuickBooks at all, right? You can, if I go to settings, import data, I would choose bank data, import. I would choose the bank account that I'm putting data in for, checking, right? And then I can upload, I can upload a CSV file from your bank. So you can download your CSV file from your bank and then upload it here to pull that data in. Okay. So that's an option that you have if you're not feeling comfortable with it. Believe me, I totally get it. I get all of these spammy emails, not from QuickBooks, but from other people all the time lately. So it's definitely a relevant caution to have. Ganesh says, AI agent keeps popping up. Yes, I know. Can you talk about it? Get early access to the new AI-powered banking page for streamlined workflows, improve AI suggestions, and more. So yeah, it doesn't show on this test drive, but if you're on your real QuickBooks Online account, they are pushing to use like an upgraded banking transactions tab. My opinion is that it's not superior at all, and that they aren't improved AI suggestions, but that's to each their own. So the good thing about that is that you can click, if I click here, it's going to, let's see if it will show me. So it should update this. Let me see if I refresh, if it would change. Again, this is the test drive, so it might not have all the capabilities. But see what works better for you. I find, yeah, it's not going to, oh yeah, here it is. I find that it's not much different or better at predicting, but you can see like here, right? They're guessing that that's landscaping services, and they'll tell you why that they think that's the case. Okay, but to me, I'm a hard sell, and I don't think it's great yet. But yeah, you can go, and then you can go back to, right? If I click on switch to previous version, I can go to their current default. Okay. Brenda says, starting a new business, have already purchased equipment from personal money to get started. How do I initially record this commingled money? I have receipts for purchases. Awesome, Brenda. We're going to talk. Let's table journal entries for the end, for the Q&A, but I'm writing it down right now. And we also go into it in more detail in QuickBooks 201. Okay. So hopefully something that you noticed while you were categorizing. I'm going to undo one of these. Okay. For A1 rental, and for all of these, honestly, is there's this button called Create a Rule. And this is a pretty big game changer in terms of efficiencies for getting your monthly bookkeeping done. Okay, so if I click create a rule, so let me rewind a little bit. So creating a rule is great for vendors and customers that pay you for the same purpose month over month or week over week or day over day, year over year. Okay, so A1 rental, the only thing that Craig does purchases from A1 rental are equipment rentals, right? That's pretty logical. This is something you could set up for QuickBooks, right? The only time you pay for QuickBooks is for a subscription, or the only time you pay a certain contractor is for contract labor, right? So I'm going to click create a rule. I'm going to name this A1 rental. This is a money out transaction from my checking, right? I could choose all bank accounts. So anytime that there's an A1 rental transaction, it doesn't matter if it's from my MasterCard or my checking. And it includes the description of a rental, right? That was in the bank detail. Then I want to assign it as an expense under equipment rental. The payee is going to be A1 rental. At the very bottom, I swear they hide this intentionally, right? Like you can't see it when you open it up. But at the very bottom, this is the most important thing. So it says automatically confirm transactions that this rule applies to. This means that if once I click save, that this transaction will never show up on my bank feed again, right? It'll go directly to my reporting. Now, while that sounds wonderful, we really don't want to have this happen. Number one, because we want to make sure that we have quick eyes on this rule to make sure that it's working every single time, right? And then number two, maybe something happens where they start selling supplies at A1 rental too, and we need to adjust that rule. So I always say, like, keep it top of mind, turn it off at least for the first 2 months, right? Let's make sure that this rule works. And then if you're adamant about having the most time savings you can turn it back on. Some expenses don't work well with rules, like Amazon, right? Most of the time you might be buying office supplies, but I'm sure there's going to be the time or two that you purchase continued education materials or job supplies or I don't know, client gifts, right? So I never make rules for like Amazon, Walmart, places that you would buy a variety of different things for. So if I click save, you can see that A1 rental now has a rule attached to it. And so instead of having to click in now to see what's there, I'll still click just so that you guys can see the rule, right? It has already added the information that I need. So now I'm able to just click add right here, and now it's gone. So my MO is to create as many rules for recurring transactions as possible, so that you can have that time savings. Okay. So go ahead and see if you can create a rule or two based on Craig's books. See if you can copy me with creating an A1 rental rule. Maybe books by Bessie, right? We know that that's bookkeeping. Can you create a rule for that? You'll also notice, right? I just created that A1 rental for A1 rental expenses. It doesn't create it for money received. So I would have to create a separate rule for A1 rental income. And I would honestly put it to the same place, right? This is probably a refund. Okay, go ahead and keep those questions coming. Althena says, now it says match found with the green button. Yes, so we can see down here, these matches means that Craig has put in either deposits or bills into the QuickBooks file. So at this point in QuickBooks software, oftentimes, and I would say if you're a solopreneur, right, you have many, many hats, you probably don't want to be putting in all of your bills and your expenses and your bank deposits separately, right? Instead, you can rely, let's look at the MasterCard more. You can rely on this bank feed to make sure that everything is accounted for, right? So I can just categorize. What Craig's done is he's added, come on, QuickBooks. He's added all of those bills, right? And so what the expense is doing is it's matching it to the bill that he's already added, okay? If you have a cash flow issue, if you're writing a lot of checks, then it would be worthwhile to do plus create and add those check expenses so that you know what your outstanding checks are. But oftentimes, if you're a solopreneur, if you don't have a designated accountant or admin person who can be adding these, a lot of the time you can work through your bank feed instead of adding those manually. It's a little bit like a little more old-fashioned accounting. Does that make sense? Brian says, so once you categorize an expense, does it disappear from the bank transactions page and go somewhere else? Yes. So once you categorize something, it has automatically moved into your financial report. So when we go to the P&L, profit and loss, we're going to be able to see those A1 rental expenses, okay? If you are like, oh, crud, I put it to the wrong account, you can quickly get to it by clicking on categorized, and you'll see these expenses. And then you can click undo, and then you'll see it back here to reconcile, to categorize again. You can also, at the top, if you just click on this navigation tab, you can see what you've done recently. This might be a little bit easier, I don't know, for your brain. And you can click right into the transaction as well. All right, we can see this, we can change this if we need to. We can add that receipt. All right. Let's get out of the accounting tab a bit, just for a minute, and then we'll come back to it. But next we're going to go to the reporting. So let me actually, I'm just going to not do this accurately, but I just want to get some data in here for you all. And do as I say, not as I do, right? Because we want to have a vendor for all of these. Oh, that's an expense. Let's see. Let's do this. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to go to reports and we're going to click on standard reports for now. So QuickBooks has no shortage of reporting in here for you. I promise you, anything that you want to focus on in your business, right? Any pain points you have or any growth goals you have, you can absolutely positively create a report that will help you to track your data, okay? But for the basics today, we're going to just talk about two of the reports, the profit and loss and the balance sheet. And QuickBooks knows these are two of the most important reports, so you have them in favorites, but you could also see them below, right? Yeah, profit and loss. So we're going to click on your profit and loss. I like to think of the profit and loss as the short-term health of your business. You can see all this AI everywhere, right? So this, most simply put, tells you if you are or aren't making profit in your business. And so you can customize this to be any reporting period you want. Like I could do all dates to see the total health of my business. You'll want to reflect it. If you're accrual accounting basis, you'd want accrual, but I'm cash. I'm going to click cash. All right. And so it starts with your income. You can see here, this first chunk are all the different ways that Craig is making income in his business, making revenue. So because he has all of these different revenue accounts, I'm able to see where he's getting his biggest bang for his buck, right? It looks like landscaping services is what I would guess, right? That's where he's making the most. Oh, yeah. Where is he not making money, right? Definitely right here. What's this $5 for? Maybe not worthwhile. Anyways, so then we go down to our cost of goods sold. Remember, these are the expenses that are directly related to producing the service or creating the good. Next, we have all of his operating expenses, right? 5,800. Another thing to keep in mind, you can click on each of these amounts to get to a transaction report. So when you're reviewing this, what? I didn't spend $900 last month. You're able to click and see, like this only has one transaction, but you would be able to see all of the different transactions within that account. And then finally, right, we have our net operating and then our total net income. This is the same as your profit. You can see right here, remember I told you about in the chart of accounts, avoiding using miscellaneous. He has almost $3,000 worth of miscellaneous expenses that need a home, right? I would want to see where those expenses should be held so that we can make some adjustments to get his profit in the green, right, in the black. Something that's important with this, right? So this number, your net income or your profit, this tells you how much tax to put aside for your estimated tax payments. And so while he's in the negative, right, he doesn't need to be reserving any money over for estimated taxes. But if it's in the positive, the rule of thumb is to move about 30% of that profit into a tax savings account for when it gets time to file your taxes. And so we're going to talk about the monthly workflow in just a bit. And this is part of it, right? Moving that money aside so that you don't have any surprises with come this time next year for your taxes. All right. And another report I like to, a customization, I should say, that I like to run for this report is to display columns by months. And then you're able to see a little bit more granularly what's going on in the business, any trends, right? Any big hikes in expenses month over month, or also hikes in income, right? Like, wow, he had a lot of plant sales for January. How do we continue that push into February and beyond? Okay. Or like this. Yikes. This must have been he charged for the service and then had to give a big refund. That's why we have the only $5, right? Is it worthwhile to keep this income stream, or should we close this and focus on where we're making money in the landscaping world, right? Oh, and then sorry, one more thing. If I love this report, right? I like all dates over the months, month over month. You can click customize here. Nope, right here, save as. And then I can save this month over, oops. I can save this. Come on, QuickBooks. All right, so I could save this into QuickBooks, and now if I go to my custom reports, I have this ready to go. So next month, instead of having to customize that again, I can just click here. Here's my month over month, and then I would have all this data in here for February. It would update it automatically. So again, a little trick to work hard, smarter, not harder, right? Is to customize these reports to your liking, and then just save them, and they can be ready for you every single month, every week, every day, however often you're looking at your reports. Now, so your profit and loss is your short-term health. Your balance sheet is your long-term health. And so when we think about this one, this is like the time capsule of your business. It actually includes all of your data from the very beginning of your business to current, which is kind of crazy to think about. But it's going to hit on the other account types. So profit and loss was your income and your expenses. Your balance sheet is your assets, are your assets, right? We can see all of Craig's assets, just like we saw at the chart of accounts: checking, savings, receivables, inventory. Undeposited funds, this is money that he has that has gotten paid, right? So somebody has paid those invoices, but the money hasn't been deposited into his account yet. So this often happens if you get paid from cash, by cash or check, right? So we want to make sure that he gets these funds into the account. That would change his profitability quite a bit, right? We have his truck. Then we go down to liabilities, right? Everything he owes for his business. These are his bills, credit cards, sales tax, looks like a loan that he has out, another loan. Remember, he just started his business. He's gonna pay all these back, and then equity. And so I had mentioned earlier, right? I don't really love the equity how he has set this up, but we would want to have an owner's investment account, an owner's draw account within this equity as well. And then retained earnings, this one we can't touch. You can see we can't click into it because this is the total calculation of your income and your expenses and your investments and your draws for your business, right? So he's brand new. His retained earnings are only $300 at this point. But it's pretty cool to see it grow year over year over year, how much retained earnings you have in your business. All right, your job right now is to go through these reports. Go and click through your profit and loss sheet, click through the balance sheet, see if you can customize a report that's important to you. If you're like Jamie, I've been in business for 20 years, I know my way around these two reports, go ahead and explore some of the other reports. This is another important one, right? If you have some receivables issues, right? If you're not getting paid on time, this one is great. So you can see the invoices that are current, 1 to 30 days overdue, 31 to 60 days overdue, and 61 to 90 days overdue. So I know I need to call that Red Rock Diner to see what's up. I need that invoice paid ASAP, right? All right, go ahead, go explore, customize a report that would be relevant to your business. Andy says, been in business 14 years just using a spreadsheet. Oh my goodness. Congratulations, Andy. That is awesome. What type of business are you in? He says, start fresh or try to input previous year data. I do use a CPA. I think that is up to how complicated your data is, right? If you're a service-based business, just you think that you could create a bunch of rules and get all of that data categorized relatively quickly. Sure, right? It's better to have your historical data, but if you're like, I'm a one-man show, I've got a lot going on, I would just start as of 2026 and move forward. Something I run into a lot with working with business owners is that by focusing so much time and energy on getting the old data in, you never get caught up. And so I don't want that to happen to you. If I were you, I would just start in 2026. But if you think you can do it relatively quickly, why not? One of the reports I run, I don't know if we're going to be able to see it very well. One of the reports I run often for my clients, right? So I like them month over month, but you can also do year over year, which at this point in the year is really nice to see, right? What did my 2025 data look like compared to my 2024 data versus 2023? So I would choose what you think you can handle. But I would say let's start with 2026. Wildlife control. Awesome. That sounds fun. All right, Salima, what's the difference between cash and accrual? Great question. So I would say for most small businesses, you're working in cash basis accounting. Cash basis means that you are recognizing income and expenses when they go in and out of your bank account. So, for example, if I'm invoicing a client on net 30, right, I'm not recognizing that income when I send that invoice. I'm recognizing that income when they pay that invoice, when that money comes into my bank account. And the same is true for expenses. Accrual, you're recognizing the income when you send the invoice or when you produce the service, not when you actually get paid. So if you don't know the difference, you're probably cash. And that's the easier way. So yeah, you want to stay there. Thomas says, how to capture miscellaneous supplies, gloves, adhesives, etc. So this is when you want to customize your chart of accounts, right? So if you were, I'm guessing maybe, medical, I don't know, Thomas, if you're in medical and you have job materials, right? Like I would probably do it similar to here, right? You have job materials. You might want to have like small tools and equipment, maybe. Oh, not even close. Thomas is in RV repairs, not medical. So you might want to have it here. But honestly, right, if we think about that 1040 form that you'll be filling out, you don't need to have these sub accounts unless you want to, right? So I would think about your time cost, right? Is it really important for you to see those separate expense accounts, or could we lump all of that into job materials? I don't know. That's up to you, right? And know that my nerdy bookkeeping brain wants you all to move from compliance to actually making financial decisions in your business, right? Eventually, you'll get to the point where we can look at these reports and be able to say, all right, we're cutting pest control services, right? That makes 0 sense. We don't need to be doing that for a couple $100 every year. It might say, wow, our job materials have gotten really high. Could we possibly work with a separate wholesaler, right? How can we cut costs there? One of the ones I see all the time is the software, right? How many subscriptions do you have for different software? If we can click into, he doesn't even have a software account, but we could click into that software account and see, do we really need ChatGPT and Hazel AI? Like, probably not. Like, let's consolidate. So things to think about. All right. So now we're going to put this all together, and then we're going to do some Q&A. So on a monthly basis, here's what I recommend, okay? Unless you have someone who's doing your bookkeeping for you, or you have a ton of transactions every month, right? Oftentimes you can have once a month be when you're coming into QuickBooks, unless you want to have more up-to-date data, right? Which you get a gold star if that's you. But I'm about, let's at least have the standard that you're in here every month, okay? So when you get your bank and credit card statements in the mail or via your email, have that be your cue that you need to log into QuickBooks Online, okay? When you have it, when you log in, the first place we're going to go is accounting bank transactions. Remember, if you bookmarked it, it's super simple to get there, right? Bank transactions. And you're going to categorize all of these transactions, okay? So I will, I'm not going to do these all, but, and the goal, right, is so that you have 3 green check marks, and hopefully your bank balance is the same as your QuickBooks balance. If you're not, don't worry, we're going to figure this out, right? So once you have these 3 green check marks, the next step is to reconcile. Reconcile is just a fancy word for making sure that there's balance, all right? We want to have balance between what's in your QuickBooks file. Remember, that's just a software, and what's in your bank, right? We want the bank balance and the QuickBooks balance to be the same. So we're going to click on reconcile. And we'll get started. All right, I'm going to do that savings because we know that that's not balanced, right? So we'll click on the checking, savings, credit card, whatever you're going to reconcile. On your bank statement, you have a beginning balance, you have an ending balance, and you have a statement ending date. All statements have these 3 things, okay? You're going to first make sure that your beginning balance matches what it says in QuickBooks, right? So I see my statement, beginning balance is 600. It says 600 here. I'm good to go. Then I'm going to look at my ending balance. I'm just making this up, okay? But I would write what's in my QuickBooks file. I mean, my bank statement file. And then I'm going to put the statement ending date, okay? And I'm going to click Start Reconciling. What QuickBooks is doing is it's using AI to match what's in QuickBooks to what is on your bank statement. So it's trying to be able to clear the $200, right? And I'm wrong, right? So you would want to have everything checked here, right? This was not good if it is not cleared. And this should say 0, right? There should be a check that says finish now. If you don't have this, what you'll need to do is go line by line in your statement. So print out your statement and go, and I usually unclick all of these and go, this is on the statement, this is on the statement, this is on the statement, and see what's missing. You either have something missing or you have a duplication. If you have a duplication, like let's say this is the duplication, you can edit and you're sure that it's a duplication. You can click edit. more, and delete. Okay. If you're missing something, you'll click plus create. Do you need an expense? You'd add an expense to the savings account. All right, I'm just winging it here. Save and close. Oh, and the date was not right. Sorry, 1 second. So remember, it still needs to make sure you have the date. You would be doing this much more thoroughly than I am right now. Okay, save and close. And then you'd be able to click on that, whatever you needed. Okay, let me show you. This is what you would want to see, right? The check mark, $0 difference, finish now. If you're working through your bank feed, the way that I just taught you, right? Categorizing through your bank feed and not adding a bunch of stuff like bills and checks and invoices like manually, off almost 90, I would say 99.5%, you should always just get the green check mark. Okay, finish now. Now it means that I have what matches my bank account. Okay, so I can say that's done. All this AI stuff. So I'm good to go. And the next month, right? When February, the end of February comes, I'll look at my bank statement. This should be my beginning balance. I'd put in my ending balance, 228.26. All right, you're going to reconcile all of your different bank accounts. So first, bank transactions, categorize everything, then reconcile. Then you're going to look at your reports, specifically that P&L, profit and loss, for last month. So I'm going to change this reporting period to last month. Change it to cash. Also, so right now, right, I'm having to change this accounting method because in those settings that we talked about at the very beginning, he has set this up under accrual, right? If you just change this to cash in your settings, you won't have to switch this over. So switch it now so that you don't have to press that darn button again and again and again. All right, I'm going to look at my net income, my profit, and then move that 30% over into a tax savings account. All right, and then you're done. Hopefully you're going to look at your reports, make some decisions, but bare bones, that's all you need to be doing on a monthly basis. Categorizing, reconciling, running your reports. If you have sales tax, this is a great time to file your sales tax payment for the month. Any other things that you need to do, maybe you need to do payroll. Really, you can make this be a quick task that you're doing month over month over month, right? An hour or two each month. All right, that is all I have for you today. We're going to use the last 26 minutes for Q&A. I'm going back to Brenda's question first, but no, I really hope this was helpful in terms of the basics of QuickBooks Online. If you want more, QuickBooks 201 is next month. And also know that, again, you can work with any advisor, either for specifically QuickBooks, but also for finance, legal. Reach out to Allie if you are interested. All right. I'm circling back to Brenda. Brenda says, I started a new business, have purchased equipment from personal money to get started. How do I initially record this commingled money? I have receipts for purchases. Wonderful, especially for those receipts. So to add expenses that you have paid for personally, right? We call that an owner's investment. We're going to have to do a journal entry. And so to do a journal entry, you're going to click plus create, journal entry. Okay, it's a little overwhelming, right? Doesn't it look kind of scary, Brenda? But it's not, I promise. So you'll change your journal date to whenever you purchased that item. Okay, I like to change this journal number to the date and then what I purchased. So let's say like Canva gift business cards, okay? The first account, I always do the actual expense, right? So if this was advertising, right, my Canva gift cards, and they were $100. So expenses are always debits, all right? If you can just remember that, for most of these transactions, you'll be able to fill this out sufficiently. You can also Google chart of accounts, debits and credits to see if you need a debit or a credit, but all expenses are debits, right? So advertising, debits, and then I would add a description of what you purchased. So I'm going to say Charlottesville business cards for new location, right? Since this is Craig, you would add whatever your vendor is. And then your second account would be owner investment. Now, Craig doesn't have this for some reason, but almost all QuickBooks Online accounts do have it. So you should already have this. Owner investment is an equity account. Detail type is owner equity. And I'm going to click save. Now QuickBooks automatically fills in the same information, right? Because what this is showing is that there was a flow of funds from the $100 in Brenda's pocket over into the advertising account as an expense. Okay, it should always be balanced. I would absolutely add those receipts, Brenda, here, just because, right, if we think about this journal entry, we're manually adding it, so we don't really have as great of a source document as like it actually flowing through that bank feed. So if you can add any receipts, that's really the best practice. All right, and then I would just click save and close, and now this data is in QuickBooks. So if I go back to my report, I'm already here. What did I pick for that date? 2/1. So I'm going to change to, we can just do all dates, right? And we can see within this advertising is now, here we go, right? So I can see this advertising expense for the $100. This is a little bit more complicated. If you work with the CPA, sometimes they'll let you just give you a list of all of your expenses that were personal so that they can add it. And again, we talk more about this in QuickBooks 201. So, all right.
Looks like you have a couple follow-up questions to the journal entry topic.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Let me get
Down
back
at the bottom.
Okay, I'm scrolling. Is journal where we put out of corp ops purchases when you grabbed wrong card, like buying stuff for personal use by accident? It's a great question, Andy. So if we think about the two different ways that we can flow personal expenses or income into our account, right? So we have this journal entry where we're adding an expense that we paid for a personal expense that we paid for a business card, right? So we have to add that expense to QuickBooks, right? This is a business expense. That's a business deduction. We want to get it in here. But the opposite could also happen, right? Where I used a business card for a personal expense on accident. So when that happens, like let's say that this is from my house, right? Then you would want to add that to your owner draw account. So you don't need to do a journal entry for this because it's already flowing through that credit card, right? It's already on the books. We need to get it off the books. So you would do it under owner draw, or you might have one called owner pay and personal expenses. So you don't need to do a journal entry because it's already here. We need to just remove it. Does that make sense? Terry says, would you use a journal entry if you deposited personal cash into a business account just for cash flow? So no, you wouldn't need to do that, right? Because it will come through your bank, right? So like, let's pretend that this Books by Bessie is not Books by Bessie, but it's Terry's investment, right? We would add this to owner investment. And this is saying that you put $55 into your account, into your business, right? And so now, remember, equity is on your balance sheet. We can see, let me do all dates so we can see. Coming. We can see here, right? We have the $100 for the gift cards, the business cards, and we have the $55 that we invested, right? That I just did. Okay. I see another question relevant, and then I know I have other questions up top. So Brian says, how would you add a loan by owner rather than an equity investment? Yeah. So if you're expecting that payment back, right, you would create a liability account called, where do I want to go? Chart of accounts. You would create a liability account called Brian Loan, right, or whatever you want to call it. Brian Loan Payable. And that would probably be a long-term liability, right? We think about long-term as more than a year, current as within a year. So we would do save. Back to bank transactions. Let's say that this $200 is Brian's investment, right? His loan that he wants back. Oh, not Brian. Brian Loan Payable. Again, I would add his name, right? I'm just going quickly. Then we can see in our balance sheet now, we have Brian Loan Payable here, right? So $200 we need to pay back to Brian. So when you do pay that out of your business bank account, right, then you would put it to Brian Loan Payable, and that would turn back to zero. Does that make sense? Great. All right. I know I saw someone ask, let's see. I saw some old stuff. So splitting transactions. Althena says, can you split up bank transactions into different accounts? Absolutely. And this I think you'll have a reason to do this many times. So if I'm back in bank and I need to split Hicks Hardware up into some job supplies and maybe an equipment rental, this button right here will split the transaction. So I need to split it to have $228.75 total, right? But I could do $200 is for the equipment rental, and let's see. And this would be $28.75, right? So we can see that there's $0 difference. And now on my profit and loss, you'll see $200 for the equipment rental and $28 for job supplies. And I would just click split and add. And there we go. Is there a benefit to saving receipts in QuickBooks for every transaction, or okay to have elsewhere? Great question, Emily. So I think there's advantages and disadvantages of both, right? I think that it's a lot of power to give QuickBooks to have access to all of your receipts. However, if you did get audited, right, and you gave access to your QuickBooks Online account, or even if you have your tax preparer, if you have someone filing your taxes for you, if you have your receipts in QuickBooks, they're going to have everything they need to do what they need to do, right? So there's benefits and disadvantages. I honestly, for my personal business, have Google Drive folders. So I have a 2026 folder, and within 2026, I have each month, a folder for each month, and I drag and drop them there. Again, I am a smaller service-based business, so I don't have very many receipts, right? but there's definitely an advantage. We talk about receipts in QuickBooks 201 also. But again, you can see it here, accounting receipts. And there are many ways to get your receipts in here. So you can upload them either from your desktop or Google. You can create an email. You can create whatever you want it to be called at qbodocs.com, and it can get sent directly to here. We also have an app. I mean, QuickBooks also has an app that you could use. So that's a hard one, Emily. Happy to work through it with you if you want, but the big thing is you want to be saving your receipts, right? If you're not great about that right now, come up with a system that works well for you. All right. You guys are welcome. You're very welcome. Chelsea says, how would you categorize, reconcile a PayPal account? So you have two different options, Chelsea, and this depends on how you actually have your PayPal account set up. So if you're getting deposits from PayPal every time you get a sale, right, you can categorize them directly in here. So say this was $900 of PayPal sale, right? I could do $900 for my income minus the 30. Yes, that's right. $31 for your fee, right? So this would be merchant fee. This would be services, right? But if you're using PayPal like a bank, you would want to link your PayPal account, and it would serve just like here, like your other banks where you have a balance, and you would want to reconcile that PayPal account every month too. So treat it just like a regular bank if that's how you're using it. Yes, Thomas. Yep, Thomas says QuickBooks has a photo option to do that for your receipts. So yep, you can take with the app, you take a photo and it comes directly into QuickBooks, which is really, really quick and easy. Brenda, does Google Drive link to QuickBooks? Yep. So if you're in receipts, you would upload receipts. You can see it right here, upload from Google Drive. So if you want bonus points, right, you could have your receipts in Google Drive and also in QuickBooks, right? You would be my star student. Thomas says, how do you reconcile Square? Yes. Thomas, are you using Square checking and savings? Or you mean just making sure that your income is accurate? Yeah, so Chelsea, if you're using it for purchasing, then I would probably link it as a bank, right? Because you'll have lots of different things going on. So Thomas, just invoicing with Square. Yep. So Thomas, that is actually the way you have options. I forget. I think you and I are meeting soon, right? We can talk about this more in a bit. But what I would say is, you have two options, right? Let's pretend this is a Square, just like we were talking about PayPal. You can split this up at a transaction level, okay? So this would be your sales, maybe your sales tax, your Square fees. You could do it like that. You could also create a journal entry that you do once a month to account for all of that. So what I do with my clients is I categorize all of their Square transactions under their like umbrella income account. So like retail sales, right? And then at the end of the month, I use the sales summary in Square to adjust for sales tax, gift cards, cash payments, and I have one recurring journal entry template, which is here. We're going to talk about this in QuickBooks 201, that I can use month over month over month to make sure that all of those numbers go into the right places. And by having this template, it takes me less than a minute to do. One last option you have is that there is an integration with Square and QuickBooks, so you can link your Square account. My hesitation for you is that depending on how many invoices you're sending out, or if you do POS, right? You have to match them individually often to your income received. So it can get pretty sloppy pretty quickly. So we can kind of go through those, Thomas, to figure out what would be the best fit for you. But you have a couple of different options. I like the idea of doing, well, I do the journal entry monthly to make sure that your numbers are right. But you have three different options. You can categorize through the bank feed, you can do a monthly journal entry, or you can use the integration. So several ways to get those accurate numbers. Brian says, oh, Brian, I did see that and I missed it. So pros and cons of using QuickBooks Desktop versus QuickBooks Online. I am a huge proponent of online. Desktop is going away. If you are still on desktop, I'm sure you've seen these rate hikes going year over year over year. They're trying to kick you out the door with desktop. QuickBooks is devoted to QuickBooks Online right now. And so I think yesterday was the time to move over to QuickBooks Online. You can't get support anymore in desktop. It's definitely, they're trying to make it a thing of the past. So I would say that's the biggest pro, right? Is that they don't want you to be there anymore. Other pros, right? With QuickBooks Online, you can access it anywhere, right? You can just log in. You don't need to be on that desktop computer. You can manage users way more easily. You can invite your accountant way more easily. Lots of different reasons. The technology, right? The integrations, the AI functionality. While I want to roll my eyes most of the time, it's really great, and it's making life a lot faster. Here's just where you add your accounting firm. All right, you add their name, email, and invite them over. Brian says, how secure is QuickBooks Online data? So they have like the standard securities, but like any technology, right? There is always that chance. I think, what is it called? C4 certification. Again, I haven't learned about any breaches or hacks through QuickBooks Online, but that's always something that you should be considering. Like, don't log into QuickBooks on a public Wi-Fi. Make sure that you're always using that hotspot or being in your private Wi-Fi settings. But again, from experience, I haven't seen anything worrisome. If you are worried about that your bank is not safe, right? Again, it's one way, so it's not QuickBooks can't get into your bank, but you can always import that data on your own, right? I typically, if I have to do this for a client, I do it on a monthly basis so that I can reconcile right away too. Ganesh says, if I process ACH externally, no direct integration, best way to reconcile suggested. Are you saying for just like getting paid, you're processing ACH externally? If that's the case, right? If you're in the bank feed, are you still invoicing through QuickBooks? No. Okay. So, I mean, you can work through your bank feed, right? That would be logical, or you can create a plus create bank deposit, right? When you receive payment, those are two different options. But if you're not invoicing through QuickBooks, then you would still see the income received, right? So say this is income, the $50 has hit my checking account, then you could add your customer, which income account it needs to go to. You could even add your invoice to QuickBooks so that you can see it. Something that I think is really helpful to consider, we talk about invoicing in QuickBooks 201. Can you tell them I'm pitching you guys come visit 201? Is that even if you don't want to receive payment through QuickBooks, you can still create these invoices in QuickBooks in order to get your receivables accurate. Something that I have a high horse for is making sure that you are keeping track of your outstanding invoices. What a silly way to have cash flow issues if you're not keeping track. And so by using QuickBooks, at least as a dashboard to see the invoices that you've sent out is like the first step in having a handle on your receivables. If you just have a bunch of PDFs on your desktop computer, right? That's not keeping good track of what's been sent out, what's been paid, how long it's been outstanding. And so really trying to use the technology to help you is so important. So yeah, if you're invoicing outside of QuickBooks and not using a different service, like maybe you are using Square or Shopify or PayPal, whatever, great. But let's have some type of organization so we can get paid. Brenda, no. QuickBooks data is not automatically shared to the IRS or ever, right? This is just a software. You hold the keys to QuickBooks. Nobody can get in here unless you let them, right? Even if you contact your experts, they will always ask for permission. They will send you a code so that they can see your screen. This is your private data. Nobody can get in here. All right. Can you set up flat rate tables in QuickBooks? I don't know what that means, Thomas. Can you tell me more? Do you mean like how much you're billing something for? If that's the case, yes. You're going to want to use products and services here, where you can say that a pump, right, costs I'm selling it for $15. It costs me $10, right? This is how many I have. So you can, yep, same deal like this then. Yep. So say it was design hours. You could say that this is how much I get billed per hour. You'd be able to add the amount of hours into the invoice. Yep. Cool. All right, Allie.
Yep. I just wanted to flag that we have 2 minutes left in our time today, so maybe time for one more question. If anybody has a burning question that they haven't asked yet, now is the time. While we're waiting for that, I also wanted to note that I shared the link to find all of our other upcoming webinars in the chat, so please do take a look at that and join us for QuickBooks 201 with Jamie, which I think is in a few weeks. Also noting that I shared my email address and our Capital Pathways program website, and I can drop that in again for anybody who would like it.
Well, I wish you all the best. You asked great questions. I feel confident you're going to get your workflow all set up. And again, don't be strangers. We're here to help you all.
Thank you so much, Jamie. And again, if anybody wants to set up an appointment with Jamie, just reach out to me, or you can do so or set up an intake call with me through our website. And as I mentioned before, any questions that we weren't able to get to, shoot us an email and we'll do our best to respond. And we will be sharing a recording of today's session as well as the link to this sandbox test platform in a follow-up email within about a week of today. Alrighty. Looks like our time has come to an end. So thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank you so much, Jamie, for all of your excellent information and insights, and for all of our participants for your wonderful questions. Hope to see you in future webinars and events. Take care, everyone.